Okay, let's go.
Hello there, ChickChatters. We're back with another Gypsy Rose, episode 3. They started this episode not necessarily where we left off with the whole dog thing. We have Gypsy and Ryan talking, I think, in their bedroom or the living room or something with the Lifetime people. And they're talking about the negative comments and stuff that Ryan was getting, I think, right when the doc must have premiered and all that. He was getting a lot of negative things. People were making fun of how he looks. They were comparing him a lot to her mom.
He was getting just as much exposure as she was because he's with her all the time. So I think people were also just responding to him in general. At the same time, they were responding to Gypsy, and they weren't saying nice things.
Yeah, so Gypsy decided to stand up for him in a comment, and it's her most infamous comment, probably to date, about that D is fire. And you know, people have made literal TikToks just based around this comment. People have recited it.
Seen what Gypsy Rose said about her husband?
Dude, I don't watch the news that much. Ryan, don't listen to the haters. I love you and you love me. We do not owe anyone anything. Our family is who matters. If you get likes and good comments, great. If you get hate, then whatever, because they don't matter. I love you. Besides, they jealous because you are rocking my world every night. Yeah, I said it. The D is fire. Happy wife, happy life. Who said I give a damn about what people say anyway? Ha ha, now come get it, baby.
Now there's a close second, which is, I have a Chad. My man wouldn't touch you with a 10-foot pole, honey.
She's got a lot of good sound bites. What was the one she said in this episode? Oh, he's sniffing around.
Sniffing around.
Sniffing around. Sounds like meow.
Oh my gosh. I do feel a little bad for her. I know getting out of prison, 99.9% of people are going to make mistakes, just like 99.9% of people make mistakes. And it's not publicized for everyone getting out of prison what their experience is like, even if they're posting on social media or even if they're posting bad things on social media. It's not publicized from the media. So I do kind of feel for her because she's just trying to live her life, and she got all the people talking about her man, so she had to let them know that she was satisfied every night. I think that's how we went from them arguing about this dog a couple days ago to this, because every night I think things just self-correct.
I kind of think she was just extra flexing. I'm not saying that it's not fire. I don't know, and I don't want to know. But
I think she thought it was, kind of thing. I think that they were doing that a lot. They're definitely in a honeymoon phase at this time that we're seeing them. So I think she thought it was. For her, it was great.
I'm kind of on the side of TikToker dude. You don't really know.
Well, that's what I'm saying for her. For what she knew, the lack of intimacy, I think she was just happy realizing that she was also straight.
She was talking about her actuality or whatever, how she was both. And that was something that I actually learned for the first time during all these episodes.
I'm not surprised by that, though, because not being able to explore that on your own and then be in prison where you're only surrounded by women and that's the only place you can explore that. I'm not surprised that she's comfortable around women that way. But the more that we talk through this, I think she's more just saying any D is fire. Like, I really think she was just like, this is the D because he's my husband and it's fire. Like, I think she'd agree with that more. No.
But Ryan was eating it up. He was like, oh, you didn't have to do that. Oh, you're going to make me blush, Gypsy Rose.
He's too much. But
he was eating that comment up. He's like, oh, you didn't have to tell them all that. You told them every night. He's like, I did. If you turned off the visual and just listened to the audio, they sound like two old people when they talk to each other.
They do. They have this really kind of strange banter between the two of them. It's not anything I've ever heard before. But then Ryan gets her tendies and her nuggies so she can choose between which one. He sets her up with a nice little meal and he goes and gets to pack it.
This is the episode after she said that she doesn't want to be treated like a child, but she gets to choose between tendies and nuggies while he goes and packs for the trip. And then she's talking about her PO officer. He's like, well, we did everything right. We did everything that we were supposed to do. And I'm like, what do you have to do besides pick her up and drop her off places?
He doesn't even have to really do that. I mean, this woman could get herself a license. And I mean, later on in the episode, he's all proud of himself. Gypsy never even touched money since she been. I'm just like, get out of here, dude. Just get out.
If you weren't here, she would have touched it anyways after prison. The reason she didn't touch no money is because of what she's been through with her mother and stuff. Like, what? And I'm sure she's physically touched $1. I mean, I'm sure her mother's like handed her $1 and said, "Go get me that piece of gum."
But this man is full on calling this upcoming trip where Gypsy's about to do at least 2 to 3 different stops for press, their honeymoon. He said, "This is like our honeymoon because this is the first trip we've taken since she got out." And I'm like, I don't think so.
Now his timeline's all messed up because then he's like, "But I do want to remarry it." And I'm like, "Well, if this is our honeymoon, then that means we already did the."
Well, remember from last episode that her time is his time and their time is his time. Honeymoon time is his time. It's all his time.
Yeah, so like, do they get a second honeymoon too? Is this honeymoon number 1? And I don't understand his times.
Yeah, can't you just say, it's our first trip, I'm very excited? You don't have to include yourself in all of this. She's going there for press for herself, for her story.
Well, that's what he keeps doing, though. I don't have an issue with Ryan, and I want to stress that. I don't have an issue with Ryan, but I do notice that he keeps saying things like, "Look at my wife." I mean, honestly, like, I like it sometimes when Dean says stuff like that, too. But I just notice it's repetitive with Ryan. Like, it's like, our PO, our this, our that, my wife. Look at my wife up there.
The way that he responded back to the people on the way out of the view, "We love you. Is there going to be another wedding? Possible." What do you mean? This guy is just, I don't know. I agree. I don't have anything against him either. I think what happened to them is what happened to them. I don't really have an opinion about it. I'm not mad at anybody. I think Ryan did the best he could.
He's acting like he did the dang crime with her, like he's Nick Godejohn or whatever. "We love you guys." Like, he should be up there too. Like,
I know. And it's just like people ask for pictures. "We're busy. We got places to go." I think he's just really swept up in all of this. He's not being a grounding kind of figure to Gypsy. He's just swept up in all of it right alongside her. I think even more so than she really is, because she seems grounded. She understands he has committed a crime. She talks about that even on The View. We got to kind of see her reaction after the infamous "murder is bad" comment on The View. I think Gypsy is a little bit more grounded than Ryan even is. He's just looking at all of this as just fame and exposure. Whereas every time people look at her and talk to her, she's thinking about her crime and that she wants to be known as more than that.
They were talking about Ken, and the difference was with Ken and Ryan and stuff, how Ken didn't want to be around the fame and all that, and Ryan's like, "I told her I ain't going nowhere. It looks less like you ain't going nowhere. It looks like you're really enjoying this a lot more than Ken." I'm not trying to say he's with her for that reason, but it does seem like he's enjoying it more so than other significant others that I've seen. As a significant other to somebody who is a public figure, I feel like if you're not a public figure yourself, you're really just there for support and to be that person's sense of normalcy. So this way, when they are not on camera, not at these actual events and stuff, they can feel like they're a normal person around the person that makes them feel like a normal person. And you're sitting around here, I don't know, like hyping yourself, hyping the relationship, hyping all this stuff up. He gives a little bit of like he's fathering her in a way.
He's overbearing.
Yes, that's the word.
She came up with a good word in the episode. He's always hovering, but he's overbearing. I don't have anything against him for it, but he's got a way of doing things, and he don't really care to hear what Gypsy has to say or listen to her make her own decisions or mistakes or not do things maybe the best way. He's just like, "This is what we're doing." We can get into the car on the way to New York. The media rep calls because they ended up being late because she had a meeting with her PO that ended up taking longer than they anticipated. It did seem like she was in there, I think, like 2.5, almost 3 hours. So by the time they get in the car, they have a 2.5-hour drive and 3 hours until their flight takes off, which we all know is not a possibility. That's just not going to happen, especially if you have a checked bag. That's certainly not going to happen. But either way, I don't think it's going to happen. So the media rep for The View or somebody calls, and they suggested, "Why don't you guys, get rid of your checked bags and just bring in carry-on so that you have the best chance of making your flight?" And Ryan is just all up in arms about the whole thing. He's even screaming over Gypsy on the phone when Gypsy's like, okay, well, we'll just do the best we can. Because even if you're not going to do what they suggest, when you're trying to be professional, you're just, okay, we'll take care of it. We'll figure it out. You're not going to just be like, well, we ain't going to do that. Bye. What did you want for her to really say? He's over here screaming over her. No, we're not. No, we ain't.
Honestly, depending on what airport and what time, you might be able to make it. I mean, I've made it through the airports pretty quick. I mean, you could, if you put a fire under your butt and actually have like a sense of direction on where you're going, you can maybe make it. But I understand not wanting to bring just the carry-on. When they were packing, he was like, bring one outfit in your carry-on. Well, that would suck if you got to New York and your press outfits, if all your planned stuff is in this check bag. I get not taking their advice because I'd probably be like, yeah, sure, Jan. I'm taking all my stuff. I got my makeup in there. I got my shampoo and my conditioner. I'm not going to rebuy everything. Because I'm sure at this point, too, they might have some money from Lifetime, but I don't think that they're well off or anything. I think they're still kind of living on Ryan's teacher income, and they might have like a little bit of money, but Gypsy isn't bringing in any money.
I agree. Any trip anywhere, like I'm bringing a checked bag. Everything's in there, definitely. But it doesn't look like they're in New York for very long. I'm sure it was provided at least for Gypsy by the people, which I think is so cute that she wore all day, because I think a lot of famous people now, when they do media things, they change their clothes for each one so that it looks different. And I just think it's cute and wholesome that she wore that outfit on Good Morning America, on The View, on the Biofiles, all day long.
She went from place to place in one day.
Yeah. But I think most celebrities now change their clothes or bring a check. Yeah.
She's not really a celebrity, though.
That's why I think it's so wholesome, because that's what I would do. If I was going on a media tour and Good Morning America dressed me and glammed me, I'm not changing for the Biofiles. I'm not. So I just think she's so like precious. I watched that actually when it came out, and I forgot about it because I went back to watch it, and then I was like, oh wait, I already saw this. But I do like that they gave Gypsy her own time on that show, because I know they did want to include Ryan, but I'm glad that he wasn't there the entire time, because this man
Gypsy's time is Ryan's time.
Ryan was right there being overbearing, saying, did you know that's my wife, Gypsy Rose Blanchard?
I will say, whenever Gypsy has an opportunity, she will bring up Ken at any second of the day. It seems like she, even unprovoked, will bring up Ken. Even when it comes to, oh, how are things going with you and Ryan? How is he adjusting to fame? Yeah, well, my ex, he left me because I was famous. And Ryan, he's sticking around.
Yeah, that's pretty much all she talked about on the Biofiles, was that whole situation. She says in that moment that she's happy and secure, but he's sniffing around.
I swear.
I think it was really interesting because I watched this twice, and both times I noticed more. But when they go do that touristy stuff and they're going to walk around, I think they're going to Times Square. Watching them walk around was fascinating to me, because watching the people see and recognize and understand there's some people behind them that are trying to be sneaky about it and get pictures of them just walking down the street from behind. There's some people who are approaching them. Some people are yelling out loud, oh, that's Gypsy Rose Blanchard. And more as they're out. And I think because it looks like she went live or made a post on Instagram from Times Square. More and more as they're out, they gather and amass this following of people, and it starts to feel more and more dangerous.
I gotta say, watching them walk around in New York City, I couldn't help but feel like Ryan just looked like an oversized penguin walking around. It looked so much bigger than everybody else in New York. And I don't mean just like weight or anything. He was just so much taller, I think, than everybody.
His shirts are ginormous and not just big, long. He just has a huge torso. He's a pretty giant sized guy, and always. So
it was when they were walking around, these people are trying to get photos and stuff. That was another time where he's like, well, if we do one photo, we're gonna be here doing everybody's photo. And I'm like, they don't want to take a photo with you, right? They want you to hold the camera.
There was one group of people who were like, we want to take a photo with you. Well, with both of you. Everyone else, Ryan was the one taking the photos.
Which, whatever. Be a tripod.
A human tripod.
Penguin human tripod.
when they were out on the street, it kind of gave the vibe of like a talk show that goes outside and asks people questions of, what do you think of Gypsy Rose Blanchard? Everybody had an opinion. They were all talking to the camera. It was kind of strange, but this one lady was talking about how she felt so bad for her and had all this pity for her. And then all of a sudden it cuts over to like a voiceover with Gypsy. And she's like, I don't want people to pity me. I just want people to be happy for me. All right. Well, you told her.
When she was reading that really mean message or comment earlier in the episode, which we did kind of skip over, but I mean, what really is there to say about somebody reading a bad comment about themselves other than you guys gotta chill?
Right. You sort of get those flashes of media that they do every so often, and people are starting to narrativize that everyone is starting to turn against Gypsy. Maybe she's a little overexposed. Gypsy's reading all the hate about all of this online, and she's wondering if people out on the streets are going to possibly throw a punch at her or yell at her or maybe do something worse. Starting to get a little bit worried about her 6 million followers and counting.
Everybody's got their opinion on everything. Everyone's entitled to their opinions and how they feel about her and her crime and everything else. I think though, if you truly don't like something, you just don't give it any of your time and attention and your energy, and then that thing will more than likely go away. I don't think Gypsy would be as famous if she wasn't getting as much hate as she's getting, because people are fueling that and they don't understand that that's all that's doing, is just fueling it.
Like that big long comment that Gypsy read about the person who was like, I'm gonna personally make sure your life is a living hell. It's like, how much energy do you want to contribute to this? You're creating your own living hell right now, being so focused. If you're actually that focused on Gypsy Blanchard and making her life a living hell, because I don't know, it's kind of crazy, but you're exactly right. Everyone who makes a comment, who views, who clicks, who shares, you're all contributing to that, whether you like it or not. So I mean, you can like or dislike her, but you're certainly supporting her
in some way.
Yeah.
What was it? Cardi B, she's like, thank you to my haters, because
y'all
still bought the music. Y'all still listen.
I want to thank my haters too, because they be downloading my stuff so they can hear it and talk crap about it, but it benefits me.
That was like a classic speech.
And it still benefits me.
I know. I love that for her. She's like, I'm so happy.
On this whole press tour, obviously this was like the Ken press tour. I feel like they keep setting up this whole Ken thing, and they also keep throwing Christy under the bus. My stepmom told me, and I'm like, Christy, you got yourself in so much damn trouble.
Definitely. And they're all I don't think the trouble's over yet. It looks like even in the preview for the next episode, Christy's about to sink even deeper into the trouble storm.
They're calling her out openly on podcasts everywhere.
Christy's the face of Ken now. It's just like, it's crazy. And Ken, he was the persistent one. He's the one that's reaching out to everybody. But anyways, Gypsy and Ryan visit his family. Not much really happens there. She takes a couple of selfies for her Instagram with the family. And Ryan's school principal calls to check in and make sure he's not too famous to go back to work. And he lets her know that he's not and he needs his job. And that's pretty much all that we get from the parent visit. And then we see them looking at wedding venues in New Orleans. We'll find out after the commercial that this wedding ain't even gonna happen. So, I don't got much to say about it.
It might be like a fun thing for her to try to just put herself into wedding planning and stuff. But I'm not saying that you can't have a wedding later. I did it, but it's just at this point, there's so many things you have going on right now. I feel like a wedding on top of it is just a lot. It just probably is a good timing.
I could appreciate wanting to do an actual ceremony that's not by the bathroom in a jail cell or whatever. I could get that, but either A, it would have to be a really small romantic thing for it to happen now, or she needs to wait like 5 years if she really doesn't want to be. It seems like she's starting to question fame and everything, and like,
I mean, or even 5 months. She's going into this like a month after getting out of prison. At least give yourself maybe like even a year for things to die down for you to like then jump into this stuff. Because if you start planning a wedding right now with all this,
everybody's gonna follow. That's why I think like even a year is.
Well, I think no matter what, she's gonna be following.
She got out in December, and we're in July. June.
Yeah, but she's also 32, so you're asking her to wait till she's 37.
She's already married though. She doesn't
I
age
know, but
well.
that's why you might as well just do it in like a year. At least it's not straight out of prison. Either way, there's going to be some kind of circus around it.
Where I'm coming from is because the reason she wants to put it off is because she says, is this the life we want to lead with all this media stuff going on? And I feel like in a year, she's still going to have media stuff going on. I mean, maybe not 5, maybe 3 or what. I mean, I'm not here dictating her life either. I don't really care. I guess the perspective I'm coming from is we're 6 months after her release making YouTube videos about her. She's got a whole film crew documentary coming out right now. So a year after her release, she's not going to be anywhere different, forming a life of a family.
She's choosing to have the stuff. I mean, you can come out of prison and say, I don't want a reality show. I don't want this and I don't want that. So I think it's kind of interesting that they're making that part of their storyline is, oh, do we want this for our future when they're literally signed up for it? They already decided this when she was in prison that they wanted this for their future. They already booked all these interviews. I've seen people who've committed crimes, big ones, come out of jail, and even though they're infamous, they don't do interviews. They want to be as low-key as possible, and I think that's part of why the public is upset with her, is because that's more of what they were expecting. They were expecting her to get out of prison, but then to shut up, and like keep to herself. And she is choosing. I mean, she's sitting there like, I don't know, are we choosing this for our future? It's like, you did choose. You are choosing it. You're on a show right now. This is your reality TV show. You are literally in front of a camera crew.
And I think the episode title of this is like, is this my life, or something like that too. So I think you're right. But I think also at the same time, everyone, regardless of your opinion of her, can agree that she's very immature and very easily influenced. I don't think people like the sister wives, Gypsy Rose, like a lot of the families that get followed on TV actually know what they're signing up for when they sign up for this stuff. So I think she's also allowed, even though she has agreed and consented to do this, and she does have a lot of followers and she is posting and she does care about how she looks on Instagram. I think she's also allowed to question, was this the right decision, or is this something I want to do in the future? I think right now she's scared.
I'd be scared
Like
too.
maybe she made the wrong decision.
I'd be scared too, honestly. I'd be looking at these people like, I might need a few days off.
Yeah, I can't imagine she knew exactly what was going to happen. And even if you start filming, just because you start filming something, that's a pretty quiet endeavor on its own until it comes out. And I get that she would do some interviews and probably think, I've done some interviews and now I can move on. People won't bother me anymore. There's 3 interviews out there.
I do wonder though if she is actually thinking long term with this, because maybe she's not as hireable without reality TV.
Totally.
It's not the best thing to say, but she's found a way to monetize her life in a way that she might not be able to if she wasn't doing all this stuff. I don't know how the hiring rate goes after you've done these top tier crimes.
I'll tell you, felons have a hard time getting a job. I mean, that's just the facts of it all. And then you add being a well-known felon on top of that, where your face is all over the media. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's going to be hard for her to get a job for a couple of years, a regular job.
Even just her name, if you just Google just Gypsy right now, not even Gypsy Rose, like just her first name, I'm pretty sure you're going to see a bunch of her. I mean, you might get the random, didn't TLC do like a gypsy show or something like that? Like you might get the actual definition for gypsy. You might get the song Gypsy, but you're definitely going to see gypsy. So I don't know how employable she's really going to be moving forward, at least for a long time. If she were to let this all die down and live a low-key life for the next 10, 15 years, maybe. But look at Casey Anthony. I mean, she's done that and she's still not. I mean, I know she's working for a law firm, but the reason why she's there is because she knows the people.
She's working for the law firm that represented her, because those are the only people in the world still to this day that will speak to her or do anything for her. And she wasn't even convicted of a crime. She's not even an actual felon. So
and she's not
mix that level of publicity and hate with being an actual felon. I really do truly think she's going to have a hard time being employable anywhere other than being, I wouldn't even call it an influencer, but just being a social media presence, being somebody who has a large following, whether you're hated or not.
I just hope she has an accountant right now, because I don't know how long this fame train's going to last for her. I don't know how the longevity of this, but I do hope that she has an accountant, a third-party accountant, somebody that could be unbiasedly looking at her money and not even trusting a single family member. Because honestly, after what she's been through, I probably wouldn't trust a single family member anyways, regardless of right or wrong or whatever. I probably wouldn't be trusting people. If I were her, I'd be getting an accountant right now and making sure that whatever money she's getting from these interviews or whatever is allocated and budgeted just right for her so she can live on it for at least a little while so she can try to remain low. But honestly, even if she lays low, like we're saying, I don't even know if she's going to be employable in 20 years, 30 years because of the infamacy of her crime, at least in this country. I mean, she might have a better time in a different country, but
maybe. That's very true. Even thinking like walking around in New York and the amount of people that already just 6 days after her being released, a whole group of people starting to follow her. Yeah, it's not going to be very easy.
You're from a bigger city and you commit a crime and stuff, usually these people can escape to the South. Yeah. But she's from the South, so the small areas in the South already know, and then the big areas know you, so there's no real safe place.
She's going to struggle for a little bit. If Chrissy said anything correctly, she said, Gypsy better strap in because it's going to be a bumpy ride. And that was definitely true. Luckily, Gypsy has to go to therapy as part of her parole. So she talks a little bit with Ryan about that, but mostly she talks a little video diary or confessional about just fame and social media and that she's trying to think about how she's presenting herself. And then she makes a little self-love post with her feeding tube scar. So I don't know. That's cute.
At first, because Dean didn't know. Dean's been watching Gypsy a little bit with me. He watched the documentary, but he didn't remember feeding tube. So he's like, why is her belly button all the way up there to the side? And I was like, that's not her belly button.
It does look like a belly button, especially in the athletic wear. Just the way that the athletic wear is positioned. I think our brains just put in belly button because there's a hole there.
But I do like that they showed that scene because there's a lot of people with body scars and like birthmarks and stuff like that. Like I went to a school with this girl that her sister had like a birthmark down her whole face and stuff. It's just nice to actually see that being represented a little bit because there's a lot of people with a lot of different scarring. We're all humans, especially women. Our bodies go through a lot. We get a lot of scars and a lot of things.
And these are all things that she didn't have any consent really in participating in. So I think it's important for her to feel like she can accept them as a part of herself, even though she didn't necessarily need that stuff or really consent to it when it was happening. So I do think it was an important thing for them to show. Didn't do a whole lot for me, but I did appreciate it.
Yeah. I can appreciate the appreciation. I can appreciate the appreciation for the scar. They tease more of the season, more about Ken, more about Gypsy altering her appearance. And I will say, I do think it's interesting that she is okay with going under the knife and stuff. Maybe she's worked out a lot of her medical fears, but I'd be like afraid of doctors and stuff. I mean, I feel like the doctor had a lot of blame in a lot of what happened to her. I mean, regardless of what a parent is telling you, if you're looking at a child that doesn't need care in this way, you can say no. You can say she doesn't need this. And I honestly would probably be terrified of doctors and what they feel they can do to me and stuff. So I gotta say, she's got a lot of growth for being able to go in there and be like, I want to get my nose done. She must really want it done that bad to be able to walk in there and be able to do it and not really seem to have much anxiety about it. Because at least in the previews, we don't see her having anxiety about it. But I assume that in the episode, whenever those episodes do come up, she might probably talk about whatever anxiety she has over medical things. But
we'll see. It all kind of just depends on the way that she looks at it too, because she's choosing to get her nose done. So it's a whole different story, possibly. I don't know. But yeah, she could be scared. She could just feel like this is my life now and it's what I want to do. It's the first medical decision, major medical decision it seems like she's gonna make. So that could be an empowering thing, especially if she has a therapist. I think a therapist could help her really frame that in a nice way, because when you have fear and anxiety, it's not a good thing to avoid things. I mean, I know that this isn't like a necessary medical procedure, but at some point she's probably going to have a medical procedure that actually is necessary. So I'm happy to see her thinking about this stuff. I was more surprised to see her getting tattoos and stuff too. I was like, geez, Gypsy.
She's got a lot of time to make up for. Got out of prison at like 30s, and then this is where she gets all of her independence. Imagine getting all of your independence when you're 30 years old.
It's crazy. I heard her say she had a stick and poke tattoo in jail too. So this
Mhm.
isn't even her first real tattoo, which me and Gypsy are soul sisters now because I have a stick and poke tattoo. I did not get it in jail because I've never been to jail, thank God, but I did get it at a party when I was
Yep, you either
15.
get them at jail or at a high school party.
Yep.
Underage drinking party.
Yep. So I did the party one part.
One thing we didn't touch on the last episode actually was the sister talking to her about fertility and having a baby and stuff like that. And I do want to touch on the fact that Gypsy said in jail she only had 2 paps in 10 years.
Yeah.
And I do think for a woman in her 20s, I know she's not out here supposed to be messing with all these different people, but I do think that that's kind of crazy. Maybe that should be looked into with the prison system because it's typical to have at least 1 pap smear a year, but I get that you can't do that with a huge prison population. But twice in 10 years just seems a little bit.
Well, and I'm not a
Dirty.
doctor, but from what I know, it was different when we were younger, but they did change the rules that you don't really need one or need to have regular ones until you're like 23, 24. So they probably waited until then for her. So that would take off a couple of those years. And then from what I know,
She went in at 23, 24.
I thought she was like
No.
18.
No, she was 22, 23, and she got out at like 32. So that's her 10 years. And that exact chunk of a woman's life is when you need to see your OB, I think, the most. Because after that, then things become teen regular. Your life kind of calms down.
Well, to be fair, though, I mean, you're not promiscuous in jail. You're not hooking up with people you don't. You're not even allowed to masturbate in jail. You're not.
Yeah, but she
And
said
so-
she had relationships with girls in jail.
Sure, but that doesn't mean that the system is going to respond to that. They're going to respond to their rules and regulations. If you're not having things going on down there, the chances of you needing treatment down there is low. You're not about to be pregnant. You're not about to get an STD. You're not about. All we need to do is make sure when your period comes that we take care of that. And let's be real, they do not take care of that in prisons either for women.
Oof.
So the fact that she's getting a pap smear twice in the course of 9 years, I think is a terrible thing, but I'm also honestly shocked to hear she got more than one. Truly.
I do think someone needs to have a talk with her about having a baby. You don't need one. She's like, oh, well, if it happens, then I'd be fine. And I'm like, girl, get yourself some birth control. Birth control that.
She should be on birth control, but people have to be careful around her because people can't be telling her what to do. They just
'Cause then
can't.
she'll
She's a
do it.
grown adult. If
They
she's
tried telling her not to get a puppy, so they can't tell her.
That's the thing. You have to be careful around that because somebody like Gypsy is just going to do what people tell her not to do because she simply can now, because she simply has the means to be able to do it. I feel like people should be careful in telling her, maybe you shouldn't have a baby, Gypsy, because then the Gypsy's going to pop out with the baby. And I think we saw some kind of preview of her saying something about possibly missing a period. I'm sure that's not actually what happened, but I think we saw her trying to play up some kind of BS around that too. So
Yeah.
ooh, this lady gives me a headache.
Well, Chick Chatters, thank you for joining us, and we will catch you on the next Gypsy Rose.
Thanks for coming back to all of our new viewers, and subscribe if you're new here.
Bye.
Bye.